the streets of survival. Before dawn, when the lagoon still held the night like a secret, Amara opened her eyes under the bridge and listened. The city had its own heartbeat. Water slapping the slimy pillars, Danfo buses coughing awake on the road above, a rooster far away. A woman's low prayer that sounded like a hum. Amara counted the sounds like beads. 1, 2, 3. She liked to count before she stood up. Counting was order. Order was hope. Beside her, Neka slept on her side, one arm across her round belly. Her breath slow but heavy, as if each breath was a bag to carry. Their mat was thin. It smelled of dampness and old nylon. A faded kente scarf covered Neka's shoulders. Amara touched the scarf and smiled. It was the only soft thing they owned. She always tucked it tight around her mother before she slept, and again before she woke her. "Mama," Amara whispered, "the sky is turning blue. We should start before the sun grows proud." Neka's eyes opened slowly. They were big and warm eyes, eyes that could make a stranger feel like a friend. "You and these your Proverbs," she said with a small smile. "Help me sit." Amara slid her hands under her mother's elbow and helped her up. Neka winced but said nothing. She never wanted to frighten Amara, but pain had lived in her bones for many months now. She leaned back against the pillar, breathing until the dizziness passed. The bridge was a city inside a city, plastic buckets stacked like houses, thin ropes, tied to poles for hanging clothes, faces that came and went like shadows. Some people nodded at Neka and Amara. Some looked away. One old man, who everyone called Teacher Sani, always greeted them in the morning with a story. He raised his head now from his mat. "There you are, my little queen," he said to Amara. "Do you know why the moon has scars on her face?" Amara's eyes brightened. "Tell me, teacher." "Another day," he said, grinning with 2 missing teeth. "Today, bring me change when the sun is tired. Then I will tell you." Amara nodded. She liked the way Teacher Sani spoke. He made hard places feel less hard. She got up, dusted her legs, and tied a small cloth purse around her waist. Then she lifted the blue plastic bowl for her roasted groundnuts and set it on her head to test the balance. Neka reached forward to adjust it. Her fingers were gentle. "Walk like a river," she murmured. "Not too fast, not too slow. Rivers find their way." Amara smiled. "I am a river." "You are a river that sings," Neka added. "And remember, speak with respect even when people don't." "I know." Amara took her mother's hand for a moment and squeezed. "We will buy bread today, the sweet one, the soft one. Insha'Allah. By God's mercy." Neka's smile grew wider. Then it faded a little. She pressed her palm to her belly. The baby kicked as if reminding her that time was running. She pushed the thought away and stood, steadying herself on the pillar. They stepped out from under the bridge, where the wind smelled like water and gasoline, and followed the road that curved past the market. The city stretched its arms. Vendors rolled up metal shutters. A boy tested a radio, and high-life music crackled into the morning. Smoke rose from a grill. The first okadas weaved like thin fish through fat traffic. Amara loved mornings. They felt like a new page. At the first junction, Mama Tinu waved from her stall of plantains. "Amara, my small lioness, come and greet." Amara ran over and hugged her. Mama Tinu pinched her cheek. "You are strong." "My river," Neka said behind them, trying to sound light. Mama Tinu's eyes moved to Neka's belly and then to her face. Worry crossed her features, quick like a cloud. "You should rest today," she said softly. "We will rest after we sell," Neka said. "Rest is a prize you earn." Mama Tinu didn't argue. She reached under the stall and brought out 2 bananas. "For strength," she said, pushing them into Amara's hands. "Pay me when the groundnuts are gone, or don't pay at all." A child must eat. Amara's heart warmed. "Thank you, Ma." She looked up to Neka. Her mother nodded, and they moved on. They settled at the Ojuelegba bus stop, where voices gathered like birds. Conductors shouted destinations, "Yaba! Yaba straight!" and slapped the sides of their buses with their palms. Smoke from roasted corn mixed with the smell of diesel. Amara loved the rhythm here. She balanced the bowl, stepped closer to car windows, and called in her clear voice, groundnut, hot and crunchy." First sale came from a man with glasses and tired eyes. He bought one small bag and smiled at Amara's careful change. The second sale came from two schoolboys, laughing as they argued about football. They bought 3 bags. Amara counted the coins in her purse and imagined the soft bread she would buy later. She liked the way small coins became a loaf, the way little things made big things. Neka didn't sell much. She tried to sit on a low stool by the wall and arrange a few sachets of pure water in a basin. Someone had given them the sachets the day before, but her head felt light and her back hurt. She pressed her hand to her belly again. "Be calm, my child," she thought, whispering inside. "Your sister is singing for us. We will go home soon. We will have a home soon." By mid-morning, the sun had climbed higher and grew sharp. Amara's small hands were quick, her feet sure. She didn't chase moving cars. She waited for red lights, for orderly moments. Still, sometimes a driver waved her closer while the light was about to change, and her heart would beat hard as she took the money and the car rolled away and the conductor shouted and everyone moved at once. She learned to step back, to breathe. Her mother's voice lived in her head. "Walk like a river." Around noon, a woman in an office blouse came to buy groundnuts. She looked at Amara and then at Neka. "Should she not be in school?" the woman asked. Amara's throat went tight. She looked at her feet. Neka spoke softly. "We are saving. She will return." The woman said, not unkind, not kind. She finally gave them a note and took 2 bags. When she left, Neka touched Amara's shoulder. "One day soon," she said. "Uniform, books, a desk with your name." "Will my name shine?" Amara asked, half smiling, "like the morning star." A breeze ran through the stop. The music at the radio stall changed to an old song that Neka loved. She began to hum and then to tell a story, because stories made hunger smaller. She spoke in a voice meant for Amara, and for the baby inside, and for herself. "Do you know why the firefly carries light?" Neka asked. Amara shook her head, pretending she did not know, though she loved this tale. "In the beginning," Neka said, "the dark was thick and people were afraid. The great drum in the sky called for a dance, and all creatures brought a gift. Lion brought roar, river brought laughter, wind brought cool hands to touch hot faces. But little Firefly had nothing. Yet he was bold. He ran to the sun and begged for a piece. The sun laughed and gave him a spark, so small it looked like a joke. Firefly carried it in his body. At night he shared it with travelers. They said, 'Ha, your light is small.' But he smiled. 'Small light,' he said, 'shows the next step, and the next step is enough to reach the morning.'" Amara held the edge of her bowl and breathed in the story. "Mama, are we fireflies?" she asked. "We are," Neka said. "We carry a small light, but it will take us to morning." For a while, the day flowed easy. Then a small thing went wrong. A bus splashed muddy water as it pulled too close. The splash hit Neka's wrapper in the basin of sachet water. Neka laughed, a soft laugh that said, "What can we do?" and stood to shake the wrapper dry. A cough rose suddenly in her chest. She turned away and pressed a cloth to her mouth. The cough stuck, hard. When it released, She looked at the cloth. There were brown-red flecks, Amara saw. Her stomach went cold. "Mama?" Neka folded the cloth quickly. "Dust," she said. "The road is dusty." Amara stared at the cloth. In her mother's closed hand, she wanted to be brave the way her mother was brave. "We should rest soon," she said. "We will," Neka promised. But her eyes drifted toward the edge of the market, where the sign of the City General Hospital shone beyond the roofs. She had passed that gate many times. She had watched nurses, with clean shoes and men in white coats moving with confidence. She had wondered what it felt like to be safe inside walls like that, but safety was expensive. Safety cost more than coins in a child's purse. They sold until the sun moved a hand-width west. The bowl grew light. Amara counted again. "It is enough for bread," she said, "and palm oil for stew." "And soap," Neka added, "the kind that smells like lemon." They walked to Mama Ekaet's stall for bread. The loaves were stacked like warm pillows. Steam drifted up. Mama Ekaet cut them thick slices for my star girl and wrapped them in old newspaper. She added a little extra. "Your mother needs it," she said. "Tell the baby to stop kicking her hard." Amara laughed and pressed the bread to her face to feel its warmth. Her stomach sang. They carried their food back along the road that curved toward the bridge. The light softened, the edges of things turning honey-colored. Danfo horns sounded less angry. Children chased each other with sticks. A drummer practiced 3 houses down, and his beats rose like birds. At the last corner, Teacher Sani waved them over and patted the mat beside him. "Now," he said, "payment for a story. Sit." Amara sat. Neka lowered herself slowly and rested her back against the pillar. Teacher Sani folded his hands and looked at the river under the bridge, where the water glowed with caught sunlight. "This story is for people who forget their worth," he began. "Why the moon keeps her distance. Long ago, Moon was close to Earth. She visited every evening and sat with the people. She liked to listen. But the people quarreled over who would keep Moon's shadow. One man said, 'It is mine. I am tallest.' A woman said, 'It is mine. I sing best.' They pulled and pushed. Moon grew sad and stepped back. She said, 'If you cannot share my shadow, I will hang where no hands can grasp me.' And she moved up into the high sky. Amara leaned forward. But why does she still come close sometimes? When people are kind, Teacher Sani said. When they share their water. When they protect the small. On those nights, Moon bends lower to see the good. That is why some nights she looks bigger. Those are nights when kindness multiplies." Neka closed her eyes as if the words were balm. "May tonight be such a night," she whispered. "Amen," Teacher Sani said. They ate the bread slowly, dipping it into a little bowl of palm oil with salt. Amara held her slice with both hands and closed her eyes on the first bite. She could taste heat and sweetness, and the day's work inside it. Neka chewed carefully. After a few bites, she pressed her fingers into the small of her back and breathed through a ripple of pain. "Are you okay?" Amara asked. "I am a tree," Neka said. "Wind may come. I will not fall." They finished the bread and wrapped the rest for later. The air under the bridge cooled. Voices softened. A woman nearby sang to her baby, a lullaby in Igbo that sounded like river water over stones. Amara leaned her head on Neka's shoulder and watched the sky bruise purple. The first star lit. She liked to find the first one. It made her feel chosen. "Tell me one more," Amara said. "Just a small one, for the baby to sleep." Neka smiled and traced a circle on Amara's palm. "The tale of the slow drum," she said. There was a drum that beat too fast. The people danced until their legs hurt. They begged the drum to slow, but it would not. Then a child came and placed a small stone on the drum's skin. The beat softened. The child said, "Fast only looks like strength. True strength is steady." The village learned to dance long into the night without falling. Amara's eyelids grew heavy. "Steady," she whispered, as if it were a special word. "Like a river." "Like a river," Neka echoed. A car horn blared above, and Amara jumped a little. She tilted her head to look at her mother. The scarf had slipped. Amara fixed it gently. Her fingers touched the line of Neka's jaw. It was sharper than before. Her mother's face told the truth even when her mouth would not. They were close to a cliff edge. The cough. The pain. The way Neka sometimes stared at nothing as if she could see a door and did not know how to open it. Amara pressed her forehead to Neka's arm, the skin warm and familiar. "We will have a room," she said, speaking to the future as if it could hear. White walls, a window that opens to a mango tree, and a door that locks, Neka added softly. "And a bed with a blue sheet," Amara said. "And a little table for my homework. And a cupboard for baby clothes," Neka said, her voice almost a laugh. "Tiny socks like folded secrets," Amara giggled. "I will teach the baby my letters. A, B, C, A, B, C, one by one. And stories," Neka said. "You must teach the baby stories. Stories feed the places food cannot reach." "I will," Amara said, very serious. The water under the bridge shifted, and the lights on the road above blurred into gold snakes. People settled. The old man with the radio turned the volume down. Teacher Sani lay back, his arm across his eyes. Night gathered them all like a shawl. Neka shifted, and a deep ache pulled through her. She hid it with a quiet breath. She did not want to add one more stone to Amara's small back. She thought of the hospital gate again, and the men in white coats, and she wondered how much a life cost, and if anyone ever paid in stories or in promises. She pressed her palm to her belly and felt the baby push. Strong, hungry for the world. "Sleep," she whispered to Amara. "Tomorrow we will rise before the birds." Amara nodded and slid closer, their shoulders touching. "Mama," she said, her voice already floating. "Yes, my heart." "If the moon comes near tonight, tell her we are kind," Amara murmured. "Tell her we share our bread." "We will tell her," Neka said. "And if she hears, she will bend low and look at you." A quiet came then. It settled in their bones like warm water. The city kept breathing. Somewhere a siren wailed and faded. Somewhere a man laughed too loud. Somewhere a cat knocked over a plastic bucket and ran. But on their mat, mother and daughter became one shape, small and fierce and bright. Later, when the river wind slid under the bridge and the stars shivered, Neka woke with a cough she could not swallow. She turned away, pressed the scarf to her mouth, and waited for it to pass. The scarf came away with a rusty smear. She looked at it in the weak light. Her chest felt tight with fear and with stubbornness. "Not yet," she told the fear. "Tomorrow, we will try again. We will sell more. We will buy soap. We will buy rest." She folded the scarf so the stain hid inside, touched Amara's hair, and closed her eyes. Above them, the moon, thin but watchful, leaned one finger closer to the city. That night, perhaps she had heard of a child who counted the sounds before standing and a mother who carried light inside her. Perhaps she had seen two people break their bread and say the word steady like a prayer. By morning, the city would open its mouth again and shout and sing. There would be dust and noise and good faces and bad faces and the thousand little things that make a day. But in the last quiet minutes before dawn, the bridge felt almost like a home, and under it, a girl and her mother dreamed of a white room with a window, a mango tree, and a door that finally closed. A hunger too deep. The next morning began with the crackle of frying oil somewhere far off and the smell of akara drifting across the air like a cruel tease. Amara's stomach tightened with a hollow ache. She lay still, eyes half open, listening to her mother's breathing. Neka's breaths were shallow but steady, the sound of a tired warrior who had fought too many battles. Amara sat up slowly, brushing sand from her hair. Her purse lay by her, sighed. She untied it with quick fingers and counted the coins from yesterday. 1, 2, 3. The sound of metal clicking against metal filled the quiet space under the bridge. Amara's lips pressed tight. The money was not enough. Not for soap, not for palm oil, not even for the small bag of beans her mother craved. "Mama," she whispered, touching her mother's shoulder. Neka stirred, her eyes opening heavy. The morning light made her face pale, and for a moment Amara thought she looked smaller than before. Still, Neka smiled. "My firefly," she said softly. "You are up early." "We don't have much left," Amara said in a small voice. "Maybe today I can sell twice as much groundnut. Or maybe I can beg?" Neka's smile vanished. She pushed herself upright, slow and careful with the weight of her belly. Her voice was firm, though tired. "No, Amara, we do not beg. The ground may shake under us, but we will stand on our feet." Amara nodded quickly, though her stomach growled in protest. She pulled the scarf tighter around her mother's shoulders. "Then I will sell more. I will call louder. I will make people buy." They left the bridge together, the city already alive with clattering pans and honking horns. The sun was not high yet, but Lagos was never truly asleep. Amara's bowl felt heavier today, though the ground nuts inside were fewer. Perhaps it was the hunger that made her arms weak. She walked carefully, balancing the bowl, her lips already rehearsing the call. The market of indifference. The Odralegba bus stop was louder than usual, a tide of people moving, shouting, selling. Amara stepped into the rhythm, her voice clear. "Ground nut, hot ground nut, sweet ground nut." She wove through cars, calling with a smile she didn't feel. A woman in a bright red headscarf waved her closer. "How much?" "50 naira, ma," Amara answered quickly. The woman sniffed, looked at her with narrowed eyes. "50? For this small handful? Do you think I'm a fool?" "It is fresh, ma. Roasted only this morning." The woman scoffed, threw 10 naira coins into Amara's hand, and walked away without waiting for change. Amara's cheeks burned, but she held her tongue. Her mother's words echoed, "Respect, even when others don't." Later, a group of young boys snatched 2 bags from her bowl and ran, laughing as their slippers slapped against the hot road. Amara chased for a few steps, then stopped. The bowl wobbled on her head and she clutched it tight. Her throat ached with the scream she swallowed. When she returned to her mother, her eyes were wet. "They took it," she said, her voice breaking. Neka's face tightened, but she reached out and smoothed Amara's hair. "Then we will sell what is left. Do not let them steal your spirit too." The flashback of yesterday's plenty as Amara forced herself back into the traffic. Her mind drifted to a different time, a time before the bridge, before hunger had sharpened her bones. She remembered their old room in a compound at Surulere. It had been small, but the window opened to a hibiscus bush. Her father, strong, with laughter that filled the air like drums, used to carry her on his shoulders after dinner. He would say, "My Amara, your name means grace. Walk with it always." She remembered her mother frying plantains while humming, her father tapping his foot to the rhythm, and the neighbors dropping in to share stew. It had been noisy, crowded, sometimes hard, but it had been home. The memory made the ache in her belly sharper. The child with the coins back in the market, Amara stopped by a young boy about her age. He wore a school uniform, but it was torn at the knee. He looked at her bowl with hungry eyes. "How much?" he asked. Amara hesitated. His hands were empty. He had no money, she could tell. Still, she took a small handful and wrapped it in paper. "For you," she whispered. The boy blinked, then smiled, a small, shy smile that seemed to light his whole face. "Thank you," he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 tiny coins, scratched and almost useless. "It's all I have." Amara shook her head. "No, keep it. Buy bread." But he pressed the coins into her palm anyway. "My mother says a gift without thanks is shame." Then he ran off into the crowd, clutching the paper tight. Amara stared at the coins in her hand. They were almost nothing. Yet they felt heavier than all the money in her purse. The collapse by afternoon, the sun was fierce, pressing on their shoulders, like fire. Neka had been sitting on the low stool, watching Amara, when her face went pale. She tried to rise, but her legs trembled. The basin tipped, sachets spilling across the ground. "Mama!" Amara screamed, dropping her bowl. Neka swayed, then fell against the wall, clutching her belly. A crowd gathered instantly, voices sharp. "Is she sick? She is pregnant! Take her to the clinic!" Amara knelt beside her, shaking her. Mother's arm. "Mama, stay with me, please." Neka's lips moved, but her voice was faint. "Amara. Water." Someone passed a sachet. Amara tore it open with her teeth and held it to her mother's lips, but Neka only sipped before her head rolled back. Her face glistened with sweat. "Call Keke," a man shouted. "This woman needs hospital." But another voice cut in. "Without money, they won't take her. Waste of time." The crowd argued, some sympathetic, some indifferent, and Amara felt the world tilt around her. She clutched her mother's limp hand, tears burning down her cheeks. "Please," she cried to anyone, everyone. "Please help my mother." For the first time, the strong firefly light inside her flickered. Hunger had been cruel, but this was terror. Terror that her small hands could not hold back the tide of something bigger than hunger, bigger than poverty. As the sun sank lower, painting the streets gold and blood red, Amara's voice rose above the crowd. She screamed with a force that made even the busy drivers pause. "Somebody help us! My mother is dying!" The city had seen thousands of cries, but this one was different. It carried the weight of desperation, of a child refusing to let go, and somewhere in the distance, fate began to turn its head toward them, the hit and run. The sun was beginning to fall sideways across the roofs of Lagos, throwing long shadows across the road. Amara had not left her mother's side since the collapse at the bus stop. She sat cross-legged beside Neka, fanning her with a folded piece of cardboard, whispering soft words like prayers. "Mama, we will be fine. Don't leave me." "The baby still wants your voice." Neka opened her eyes, her breath shallow but insistent. "I'm not leaving, Amara. The tree bends, but it does not break. Help me stand." It took 3 tries, but Amara pulled her up, her small body trembling with the effort. They began to walk slowly, hand in hand, back toward the quieter street. The noise of the market still echoed behind them, bargains shouted, Okada engines revving, hawkers calling like birds. They were halfway across the road when it happened. The screech of a car, black and polished, burst out from the corner, like a shadow too fast for the sun. Its horn blared sharp as a knife. Drivers shouted in alarm, but the car swerved, impatient, reckless. Amara froze. She saw the blur of chrome, the gleam of glass. She dropped the groundnut bowl. Her small hands pulled at her mother's wrapper. "Mama!" she screamed. Neka tried to move, but the weight of her belly slowed her. The car clipped her side with a sickening force. She spun, her tray of peppers flying into the air like scattered rubies. The sound of her body hitting the road was louder than the horn. louder. Then the crowd's gasp. The car did not stop. It roared forward, disappearing into traffic, its red taillight swallowed by dust and shouts. Blood on the asphalt. Amara fell to her knees. The world blurred with tears. Her mother lay on the hot road, blood darkening the folds of her wrapper. Neka's hand reached weakly toward her belly, trembling. "Amara," she whispered, her voice ragged. "The baby. Protect the baby." "No, Mama, don't talk like that. You will be fine." Amara pressed both hands against the wound, but the blood seeped through her fingers. She screamed, her voice raw. "Help us! Please, someone help us!" The crowd thickened. Some looked in pity, others in irritation, as if tragedy was an inconvenience in their busy day. "Nah, hit and run," one man said, shaking his head. "Who get time to help?" "Hospital go demand money first," another muttered. Amara's chest heaved. She stared at them all, her face streaked with tears. "Is nobody human here? She is my mother." Her scream cut through the noise, slicing into the conscience of the few who still had one. The kind strangers. A tall man with dust on his shirt finally stepped forward. His name was Chinedu, a Keke Napep driver. He knelt beside Neka, his eyes worried. "This woman will die here if we waste time." Another woman, older, carrying a basket of oranges, dropped her goods and joined them. "Child, don't cry. We will take her. Chinedu, bring your keke." Amara's hands shook as they lifted her mother into the tricycle. Neka moaned, clutching her belly, the smell of iron, blood, mixed with the dust in the air. Amara climbed in, her small body pressed against her mother's side, whispering in her ear, "Stay awake, Mama. Stay awake, I'm here." Chinedu started the engine with a cough of smoke. He shouted over the crowd, "Clear road! Emergency!" The Kiki lurched forward, bouncing over potholes. The wind whipped Amara's face, but her arms stayed around her mother. The race through Lagos, the Atayapadi. Streets blurred, a blur of faces, cars, and voices. The city that had always felt too big now felt like a trap. At every corner, traffic choked them. At every red light, time bled away. "Move!" Chinedu shouted at a Danfo blocking their path. "A life is at stake!" The driver cursed, but shifted aside. Neka groaned. Her head rolled against Amara's shoulder. "Amara?" "Yes, Mama. I'm here. Do not be afraid." Amara swallowed her tears. "I'm not afraid. We will reach. We will find help." But deep inside, she was afraid. Terrified. Her mother's. Blood was soaking her wrapper, seeping onto the Keek's seat. The smell was sharp, unforgettable. The orange seller woman pressed her wrapper against the wound, her hands steady. "Hold strong, sister," she murmured. "God is watching." Amara clutched her mother's hand, pressing it against her cheek. She whispered the firefly story again, her voice breaking. "Small light, Mama. We are small light. We will reach—" The morning. The gate of indifference. At last, the Kiki screeched to a halt before the wide iron gates of City General Hospital. White walls loomed behind them, too clean, too far from the dirt of the street. Amara leapt down first, running to the gate. "Help! My mother! She's bleeding! She's pregnant, please!" Two security guards came forward. They looked at her, then at the bloodied figure in the Kiki. One shook his head. "Go inside. Reception will tell you what to do." Inside, the hospital smelled of antiseptic and air conditioning. Amara's bare feet slapped against the tiles as she ran to the front desk. She slammed her small fist on the counter. "Please, my mother is dying. Help her!" The nurse, a woman with glasses perched low on her nose, barely looked up. "Accident case?" "Yes." "A car hit her. She's bleeding, please." "Deposit." "First," the nurse interrupted coldly. $200 for emergency surgery." Amara blinked. She pulled her purse from her waist and emptied it on the counter, coins rolling everywhere. "This is all I have. Please, start first. I will find the rest." The nurse pushed the coins back toward her. No deposit, no treatment. That is hospital policy. Amara's chest shook with rage. But she will die. The nurse shrugged, already calling for the next patient. The cry that shook the walls. Amara turned, her eyes searching the waiting room. She fell to her knees before a man in a suit. Please, sir, my mother is dying. Just lend me. The man shook his head, uncomfortable. Sorry, little girl, I don't give strangers money. She ran to a woman holding a Bible. Auntie, help me, please, the woman smiled sadly. I will pray for you, she said, walking away. Amara's scream filled the air, raw and fierce. Somebody, anybody, please! The guards began to move toward her, muttering about removing her and the stretcher from the hall. Amara threw herself across her mother's body, clutching Neka's limp hand. And then the corridor shifted. The sound of firm footsteps echoed against the tiles. A man in a white coat entered, tall, broad-shouldered, with the calm authority of someone who carried lives in his hands every day. His face was familiar to everyone. His name was whispered in the city like a legend, Dr. Kofi Obeng. He stopped, at the scene, his sharp eyes moving from the frightened child on the floor to the bleeding woman on the stretcher, to the nurse standing coldly behind the desk. What is happening here? His voice was deep, steady, unshakable. The nurse stammered, Sir, this girl, she has no deposit. Amara didn't wait. She crawled to him, clutching his coat with both hands, her tears smearing the fabric. Please, sir, she begged, her voice cracking. Please save my mother. She was hit by a car. She's pregnant. They said no deposit. But I have nothing. Don't let her die. Her small hands trembled. Her voice was broken, but her eyes held a fire that refused to be put out. The security guard tried to pull her away, but Dr. Kofi raised a hand. Leave her. He crouched down until his face was level with hers. His voice softened. Where is your mother? Amara pointed with a shaking hand to the stretcher. There. Dr. Kofi turned. For the first time, his eyes landed on Neka, and something in his face changed, a flicker of recognition, a memory long buried, but that moment passed. He straightened, his voice sharp as steel. Take her to the emergency room, he commanded. Now, and call the best surgeon. This woman will not die because of paperwork. The nurses moved instantly, rolling the stretcher through the swinging doors. Amara's knees buckled with relief. She looked up at Dr. Kofi, her tears still running. Thank you, sir. Thank you. But Dr. Kofi's gaze lingered on Neka's limp hand as it swung from the stretcher. On that hand was a mark, a crescent-shaped birthmark, that pulled at something deep in his memory, something he could not yet explain. The hospital walls, the emergency doors swung open, and the stretcher carrying Neka vanished into a flood of white coats and sharp voices. Amara tried to follow, her bare feet slapping against the cold hospital tiles, but a nurse blocked her with a firm hand. Stay outside, little girl, she said sharply. No, I have to be with my mother, Amara cried, her voice breaking. Before the nurse could push her away, Dr. Kofi Obeng raised his hand. His eyes flicked between the trembling child and the stretcher rolling into the theater. His tone was calm, but his words carried a weight that silenced everyone. Let her wait near the doors, he instructed. She has earned that much. The nurse swallowed her protest and nodded. Amara sank onto a wooden bench outside the theater, clutching her knees to her chest. Her mother's voice still echoed in her head. I'm not leaving, Amara. The tree bends, but it does not break. The hospital air was cool, scented with antiseptic and something sharper, metallic, blood. To Amara, the air felt foreign, like it belonged to another world. She had spent months under the bridge where the air smelled of dust, smoke, and sweat. Here, the walls were white, the floors polished, and everyone moved with purpose. She felt small, invisible, like a stranger, in a land that wasn't hers. The waiting room battlefield time became a cruel enemy. Each second stretched long, a drumbeat pounding in her ears. The theater doors swung once in a while, nurses moving fast, voices clipped with urgency. Amara tried to read their faces, searching for hope, but their eyes slid past her as if she were furniture. Her stomach growled, loud in the silence. The bread from yesterday was long gone. She held her purse, just a few coins left, and rubbed the metal as if friction could turn it into a miracle. Beside her, a woman paced the corridor, muttering prayers in Yoruba. Across from her, a man scrolled through his phone, bored. A television high on the wall played an old Nollywood film, its characters laughing loudly, a cruel contrast to the fear choking Amara's throat. She pressed her hands together and whispered, her own prayer, her small voice trembling. God of the moon, God of the fireflies, God of the trees that bend but do not break. Please let Mama live. Please don't take her away from me. Not now. Not when the baby needs her. Not when I only have her. Her voice cracked on the last word. Dr. Kofi's memory, from the corner of her eye, Amara saw him, the man in the white coat. Dr. Kofi walked through the corridor, his voice low as he gave instructions to junior doctors. Every time he passed, his eyes flicked toward her, quick but searching. When he thought no one noticed, he stood at the theater window, looking inside. His gaze lingered not on the machines or the doctors, but on the limp hand that hung from the stretcher, on the crescent-shaped birthmark above Neka's thumb. He pressed his own hand against his coat pocket unconsciously. His memory stirred, old and heavy. He remembered being 12 years old, sitting in his mother's small tailoring shop in Kumasi, Ghana. She had paused her sewing one afternoon, eyes wet, and told him the story she rarely spoke of. "You had a twin," she whispered, "a sister. 2 children born under the same moon. But she was taken from me in the market when you were only 2 years old." I turned my head to measure cloth, and when I looked back, she was gone. We searched the whole country, but the world swallowed her. Kofi had lived with that story like a shadow, through medical school, through the years of struggle, through the rise of his hospital empire, a twin sister who vanished into the mouth of fate, a missing half of himself he had long buried under work and ambition. And now, could it be this woman? This homeless, bleeding, pregnant woman on his stretcher? The whisper of folklore Amara's, head nodded forward as exhaustion pulled at her. She had not slept since dawn. She dreamed with her eyes half open, her thoughts weaving stories the way her mother did. She imagined the moon leaning low, its scars glowing bright. Teacher Sani's voice echoed in her memory. "When people are kind, the moon bends closer to watch," she whispered, half in sleep. "Moon, bend low tonight. Watch over Mama. Don't let her be taken." A nurse passing by glanced at her, pity flashing briefly in her eyes before she looked away. The suspicion grows, at last. Dr. Kofi approached her bench. He crouched down, lowering himself until his face met hers. His voice was gentler than before. "What is your mother's name?" he asked. "Neka. Neka Chibuzo," Amara replied, blinking at him through tears. "And your name?" "Amara. I'm 10, almost 11. She straightened her back as if age could make her taller. "Do you have family nearby? An aunt? An uncle? A grandparent?" Amara's lips trembled. "No. My father's people say my mother is a witch. My mother's people. They said she isn't their child, that she was bought from a man long ago. We have no one." The words sat heavy between them. Dr. Kofi studied her face, the shape of her nose, the curve of her jaw. Something in her eyes, resilient, stubborn, older than her years, stirred a strange familiarity in him. You will not have to pay anything for her treatment, he said firmly. Do you understand? Nothing. Amara's eyes widened. Truly? You promise? He nodded. I promise. The hidden test hours later, while the surgeons worked inside, Dr. Kofi slipped into the lab with a vial in his coat pocket. He had taken it quietly. Just a swab from inside Neka's cheek before surgery began. He placed it on the counter. Run a rapid DNA comparison. Check it against my profile. The technician frowned. Sir, is this urgent? Very urgent, Kofi said, his voice clipped. Rush priority. As the machine hummed, he stepped back, his hands clasped behind his back. He tried to still his thoughts, but they raced. Could this be her? After all these years, could fate have dragged her to my door? The night that would not end, outside the theater, Amara curled on the bench, arms around her knees. The hours felt endless. Each time the doors swung, her heart leapt, only to sink when no news came. She whispered to herself, to her mother, to the unborn baby, we are fireflies. Small light. Small light shows the next step, and the next step is enough to reach the morning. Her voice grew faint, but she kept repeating it like a shield. And behind the theater doors, where surgeons fought against time and blood, a doctor who carried both science and folklore in his heart prepared himself for the possibility that the stranger on the table was no stranger at all. The doctor's suspicion. The night stretched long, and the city outside the hospital fell into its usual chorus, Okada horns, the call of night traders, and the distant echo of Afrobeat leaking from roadside speakers. Inside the polished walls of City General Hospital, a different kind of rhythm filled the air, the steady beeping of heart monitors, the clipped commands of nurses, the quiet rush of wheels on tiles. Amara still sat outside the theater. Her body was small on the bench, her chin resting on her knees. She had not moved for hours. Her lips moved silently, repeating the same line like a prayer. Small light shows the next step, and the next step is enough to reach the morning. The theater doors finally swung open, and a surgeon stepped out, peeling off his gloves. His eyes landed on Dr. Kofi Obeng, who had been waiting, his arms folded, his shoulders tense with an authority that masked the storm inside him. She's stable for now, the surgeon said. The bleeding has stopped, but she will need rest, and the pregnancy is still delicate. She must be monitored closely. Dr. Kofi nodded, his jaw tightening in relief. His eyes drifted past the surgeon to the bed being wheeled out. Neka, pale, her eyelids fluttering, her hand limp against the sheets. For a moment, his professional mask slipped, his gaze locked on the crescent-shaped birthmark above her thumb. That mark pulled at him like a magnet to memory. The memory that refused to die long ago, in his mother's tailoring shop in Kumasi. Little Kofi had watched his mother cut fabric while tears ran silently down her cheeks. He remembered the day, clearly, the smell of wax print cloth, the faint hiss of a charcoal iron, the low hum of a hymn she sang through sobs. You had a twin, she told him, voice shaking. 2 moons born under one sky, but one was stolen. I turned to measure cloth, and when I turned back, she was gone. Kofi had grown up with that story like a thorn pressed into his soul. He had searched markets in Accra when he became a doctor, asked questions in villages, read old police records. Nothing. The world had swallowed his sister whole, but now she lay in his hospital, bleeding, homeless, pregnant, carrying a child into the same world that had stolen her from him. The lab results. Kofi walked quickly down the corridor, his shoes clicking against the tiles until he reached the lab. The technician looked up nervously as he entered. Doctor, the results are ready. Kofi took the file with steady hands, but his heart was unsteady, pounding against his ribs like a trapped drum. He opened it slowly. His eyes scanned the lines. DNA comparison, positive, monozygotic twins, probability 99.9%. For a moment, the world tilted. The lab seemed to fade, replaced by the face of his mother, crying softly as she sewed. She was taken. She was stolen. Kofi's throat tightened. He pressed a hand against his mouth to steady himself. Fate had not swallowed his sister. Fate had dragged her here, broken, suffering, but alive. The child who waited. He returned to the corridor where Amara still sat, her head drooping against the wall. She stirred when his shadow fell over her. Her eyes, tired but stubborn, looked up at him. "Is Mama alive?" she asked, her voice fragile, yet burning with courage. "Yes," Kofi said softly. "She is alive, and the baby is safe." Amara's breath shuddered out in relief. She pressed her palms together, whispering, "Thank you, thank you." Kofi studied her closely. There was something in her face that mirrored his own mother's when she was younger, the high cheekbones, the eyes that carried both sorrow and fire. "What is your name again, child?" "Amara." He crouched to her level. "Amara, tell me, did your mother ever speak about her family, about where she came from?" Amara's eyes darkened. She looked down at her knees. She said, "Her people told her she was not theirs, that she was bought from a man in the market. They said she was never their child." The words pierced Kofi like knives. Bought in a market. Stolen, just as his mother had said. His suspicion hardened into certainty. The weight of revelation later, in the quiet of his office, Kofi sat at his desk staring at the file again. The air conditioning hummed. The city outside pulsed with life, but inside time felt suspended. He ran his hand over his own wrist where a faint crescent scar rested, almost identical to the mark on Neka's hand. "How do I tell her?" he wondered. "How do I say, 40 years ago you were stolen from us, and I have been waiting without knowing?" His thoughts turned to their mother. An old woman now, still alive in Kumasi, still praying every night for the child who vanished. He imagined her hearing the news, her tears, her relief, her joy. But first he had to face Neka. The folklore of blood. That night, unable to sleep, Kofi found himself walking back toward the patient's room. Amara was curled up in a chair beside, her mother's bed fast asleep, her small hand gripping Neka's fingers. Neka stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She saw him and tried to rise, but he gestured for her to stay still. "Rest. You've lost too much strength." Her lips trembled. "I don't know how to repay you, doctor. We have nothing. No money. No family. You owe me nothing," Kofi said gently. Her eyes filled with confusion. "Then why are you helping me?" Kofi hesitated, the truth pressing at his throat like a river behind a dam. But instead of speaking, he told her a story, his voice low and steady. "In our village," he said, "they tell of the red silk tree. Long ago, a storm tore the tree in two. One half was carried away by floodwaters, lost in the forest. The other half remained by the river. For years, the river half stood alone, twisted by wind and sun. But one day, travelers found the other half growing far away, scarred but alive. They brought it back, and when the two halves touched, the tree bloomed red silk flowers for the first time. They say the halves had been waiting for each other." Neka listened, her eyes softening. "That's a beautiful story." Kofi's gaze lingered on her. "It is not just a story. It is blood. And blood, Neka, always remembers its other half." She frowned, as if trying to understand, but exhaustion pulled her back into sleep. Kofi remained at her bedside for a long while, watching his sister breathe, listening to the steady beep of the monitor. His suspicion was no longer just suspicion. It was truth. The lost half of his family had been returned to him by fate itself. But how, he wondered, Would she accept it when she awoke fully? Would she see him as a brother? Or as a stranger with a story too heavy to believe? The revelation. The night was long, but dawn finally broke, pale and slow, spilling thin fingers of gold across the hospital windows. The city outside was waking, horns blaring like impatient roosters, but inside room 204, the world seemed frozen in stillness. Neka stirred, her eyelids fluttering. She woke to the sound of a steady beep-beep from the monitor beside her bed, and the faint smell of antiseptic in the air. Her body ached as if she had been carved hollow, but she was alive. Her hand twitched, and immediately she felt a smaller hand tighten around it. "Mama," Amara whispered, springing up from the chair beside her. Her eyes were puffy from crying, but bright now with relief. She pressed her forehead against Neka's palm, whispering fast. "You scared me. I thought you were leaving." Neka forced a weak smile. Her voice was soft but steady. "I told you, my Amara. The tree bends, but it does not break." Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks. "The baby?" "Still here," Neka murmured, her hand resting gently on her belly. "Still kicking." Amara gave a shaky laugh, half tears, half joy. She kissed her mother's hand over and over, whispering thanks into the skin. At that moment, the door creaked open. Dr. Kofi Obeng entered, his white coat gone, replaced with a simple dark shirt rolled at the sleeves. He carried no clipboard, no mask of formality. His expression was unreadable, heavy with something deeper than professional concern. "Good morning," he said quietly. Neka tried to sit up straighter, wincing with the effort. "Doctor, I don't know how to thank you. You saved us, but I have nothing, no money, no family to help." "You owe me nothing," Kofi said firmly. His eyes softened, though shadows lingered in them. "Your life is payment enough." The weight of words. For a moment, silence filled the room, thick and uneasy. Neka's fingers picked at the sheet nervously. "But why?" she asked in a whisper. "Why save me when others turn their faces away? Why fight for me like that?" Kofi hesitated. His hand brushed across his pocket, where the lab results lay folded. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind all night, but now the words stuck like stones in his throat. Instead of speaking plainly, he leaned on the wisdom of stories, the same way their mother had once wrapped truth in folklore to soften its sting. "In our land," he began slowly, "they tell the tale of the river twins. When the gods poured water into the earth, two rivers were born side by side. They flowed together as children, laughing, feeding the same villages. But one day, a storm struck, and one river was forced underground. For years, the other river searched, flowing across valleys and plains, but never finding its twin. It became restless, always rushing, never at peace. Until one day, far away, the river reappeared from the earth, scarred, changed, but alive. And when the two met again, the earth bloomed with a harvest like never before." Neka's brow furrowed, her lips parting slightly. "It's a good story, but why tell it now?" Kofi's eyes did not leave hers. His voice was low, weighted, with meaning. "Because, Neka, I think you are the river I have been searching for, the unthinkable truth." The room fell silent. Even the beeping of the monitor seemed to fade. Amara looked between them, her small face puzzled. "I don't understand," Neka said, her voice trembling. "What do you mean?" Kofi took a deep breath. His thumb brushed the edge of the file in his pocket, but he didn't need the paper anymore. The truth was written in her eyes, in the crescent birthmark on her hand, in the blood they shared. "When I was a child," he said carefully, "my mother told me a story, not a folk tale, her own story. She gave birth to twins. a boy and a girl. But one day in the market, she turned away for a moment, and when she looked back, the girl was gone. Stolen. She searched the whole city, the whole country, but she never found her daughter. All she had left was me, and the memory of a sister who vanished. Neka's lips trembled. Her eyes widened, as if a veil had been lifted. "No," she whispered. Kofi leaned forward, his voice breaking. "Yes, I ran a test. The blood does not lie. Neka, you are my twin sister." Shattered silence. The words struck like thunder. Neka's chest heaved as tears filled her eyes. For years she had lived with rejection, from her husband's family, from her own adoptive parents who claimed she wasn't theirs. She had wandered like a shadow, carrying a hole in her heart she could never name. And now this man, this doctor who had saved her life, was saying he was her brother. She covered her mouth with shaking hands. "All my life, I thought I was unwanted, that I did not belong anywhere, that maybe God made a mistake with me. And you're telling me I had family all this time?" Kofi's own eyes glistened. Yes. Family that never stopped waiting. Family that prayed for you every single night. Our mother. She is still alive. She has not stopped asking the heavens to return you. Neka sobbed softly, the sound raw and heavy. She turned her face away, ashamed of the tears. But Kofi reached out and gently took her hand, turning it palm up until the crescent birthmark caught the light. He placed his own wrist beside hers, showing the faint crescent scar on his skin. "See," he whispered. "The rivers have found each other again." Amara's world. Turns Amara had been silent, her wide eyes darting between them. Now she spoke, her voice trembling but strong. "So, Uncle, you are my mother's brother?" Kofi turned to her, a small smile breaking through the storm on his face. "Yes, Amara, that makes me your uncle, and that means you are not alone anymore. Do you hear me? Never again." Amara's lips parted, and for the first time since the accident, hope shone through her tears. Then we have family?" "Yes," Kofi said firmly. "You have a family, a home, a future." Neka wept harder, her hands covering her face. She shook her head in disbelief, but her tears were no longer only sorrow. They were relief. Release, the burden of years breaking open, the folklore of return. In the quiet that followed, Kofi told another short tale, his voice like a balm. There is a proverb in Akan. When a branch falls into the river, it will drift far, but one day it must touch land again. You, Neka, are that branch, and today you have touched land. Neka lowered her hand slowly, looking at him through wet lashes. "Then promise me," she whispered. "Promise me we will not lose each other again." Kofi gripped her hand, his own voice shaking now. "I promise. From today, we walk together." Amara slipped her small hand into theirs, bridging the gap between them. And in that hospital room, under the hum of machines, the faint scent of lilies on the windowsill, and the rising sun bleeding gold into the sky, a family that had been torn apart by fate began to stitch itself whole again. The aftershock. The morning after the revelation carried a strange heaviness. It was as though the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what Neka would do with this new truth that had been placed on her lap. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic, but beneath it, there was a faint sweetness. The lilies on the windowsill had opened overnight. Their white petals seemed to lean toward her, as if listening, as if urging her to believe. Amara sat by her mother's side, her head against Neka's arm. She had finally fallen asleep, her small frame rising and falling with shallow breaths. But Neka could not rest. Her mind spun like a top, whirling with questions, with doubts, with a fragile hope that frightened her more than despair ever did. Could it really be true? She whispered to herself. For years, she had been told she did not belong. That she was not truly a daughter, not truly a sister, not truly anything. She had worn the cloak of rejection so long it had become her second skin. Now this man, this doctor, was telling her she was his blood, his twin, that she had a family she never knew, the weight of it pressed down on her chest until she could hardly breathe. Kofi's return. The door opened softly. Dr. Kofi entered. Again, not in the commanding stride of a doctor making rounds, but like a brother carrying something fragile in his hands. His eyes went first to Amara, asleep against her mother's arm, then to Neka, whose face was streaked with silent tears. "Did you sleep?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "How could I?" He sat down slowly, folding his large hands together. For a long time he said nothing. He simply looked at her, letting the silence breathe. Then, in a voice that trembled despite his strength, he said, "When my mother told me I once had a twin sister, I thought it was just a wound she carried in her heart. Something she would whisper about but never see healed. I told myself I would grow up, take care of her, make her proud. But at night, I felt it, a hole in me, as if my other half was somewhere in the world crying and I could not hear her, laughing and I could not laugh with her, living and I did not know her. Neka, when I saw you yesterday, I knew. The blood test only confirmed what my spirit had already told me." Neka closed her eyes, her tears slipping quietly. "It feels like a dream, and dreams are dangerous for people like me. Every time I hoped I fell, and I don't know if I can fall again." The folklore of the drifting drum Kofi leaned forward. "Do you know the story of the drifting drum?" Neka shook her head slowly. "In our villages, they tell of a sacred drum carved by the ancestors. During a storm, the river carried it away. The people thought it lost forever. But years later, after wars and hunger and silence, the drum returned. The river placed it on the shore of another village. They struck it, and the sound was the same, deep, whole, as if it had never been lost. That drum, Neka, that is you. You were carried away by storms you could not control. But here you are, returned, not broken, still carrying the song." For the first time, Neka let out a laugh, soft and wet with tears. "You and your stories," she murmured. "They are not just stories," Kofi said, smiling faintly. "They are ways the ancestors speak when our own words are too heavy." Amara wakes. To a new world Amara stirred and blinked her sleepy eyes. "Mama," she mumbled, rubbing her face. Neka smoothed her daughter's hair. "I'm here, my star." Her gaze lifted to Kofi, still sitting there. "Is Uncle still here?" "Yes," Kofi answered, smiling warmly. "I will always be here." Amara sat up straighter, her small chest swelling with cautious excitement. "Does that mean we will have a house, that I can go to school again?" Neka swallowed hard. She wanted to tell her daughter not to hope too much, not to build castles in the sky only to watch them crumble. But Kofi leaned in before she could answer. "Yes, Amara," he said firmly. "You will have a home. You will have books. You will wear your uniform with pride. You will walk into school with your head high. That is my promise." The girl's face lit up like sunrise. She leaned forward and hugged him without hesitation. For a moment, Kofi froze, as though he hadn't expected the touch. Then his arms wrapped around her gently, carefully, like a man holding something holy. The pull of the past. Later that afternoon, when Amara had gone to the canteen with a nurse for food, Kofi turned serious. There is something else you must. No, he said quietly. Neka braced herself. Our mother, our true mother, is alive. Old, yes. Weak in her bones, but strong in her heart. She never stopped searching, never stopped praying. She sits by her doorway every evening, staring down the path as if you might appear. If she hears this news, she will think her prayers have been answered. The words struck like fire. Neka's heart leapt and sank all at once. She wanted to see this woman, to ask why she hadn't found her, to cry in her lap like a child. But fear wrapped around her throat. What if she rejects? Me too? Neka whispered. What if she looks at me and sees only a stranger? Kofi shook his head firmly. No, she will not. She will see her daughter, the one she lost, the one she begged the heavens to return. Neka, you are her answered prayer. But Neka's doubts were stubborn. Years of rejection had carved deep scars. Could love really grow again, where nothing had lived before? Amara's quiet resolve. That night, after Kofi left, Neka lay awake staring at the hospital ceiling. Amara curled against her side, whispering softly. Mama, yes, my child? Do you believe him? That he's your brother? Neka sighed. My heart wants to believe, but believing can hurt. Amara pressed closer, her voice barely a breath. Maybe this time, believing will heal. Her mother turned, startled by the wisdom in such a small voice. She kissed her daughter's forehead, holding her tight. Perhaps, my star, she whispered. Perhaps. The drumbeat of change. The next morning, Kofi came again, carrying a small carved box. Inside lay 2 photographs, old, fading at their edges. One was of him as a boy, standing beside a tired-looking woman with strong eyes. The other was of 2 babies, swaddled together, tiny crescent birthmarks visible on their hands. Neka's fingers trembled as she touched the photo. Her breath caught. It's us, Kofi said softly, before the storm carried you away. And, for the first time in many years, Neka let hope stretch its limbs inside her chest. Tentative, fragile, but alive. Because maybe Amara was right. Maybe this time, believing would heal.